Alright guys, today what we're going to be doing is looking at the distance between 2 points. So what we're going to do is talk about the distance formula. So basically what it's saying, if I have two dots on a graph, on a map, and I wanted to figure out the distance between these 2 points, how could I do that? Well, there's this formula that we're going to be doing. It's basically saying I'm going to be given 2 points, an x point and a y point, and a second x point and a second y point. And what it's basically saying is I want to find the distance between these values. So the formula is I want to take the square root of x2 minus x1 and I want to square it. And I want to add that to the difference of my y values. So y2 minus y1 squared. I'm going to plug in any of my values into this formula, and that will give me the distance between 2 points. Now, just as a quick hint, when I was your age, I always got stuck on which ones were plus, which ones were minus. And something that might help you is distance is always going to be positive. So if I square a negative number, that'll give me a positive. So if I square these negative numbers, it'll give me a positive. And then once I take these positive numbers and add them, that'll just give me a positive number. So what I'm always going to do is I'm always going to write that formula down, okay? So that formula is the square root of x2 minus x1 squared. I'm going to add that to the square root of y2 minus y1 squared. And I'm just going to label these points. This is x1, this is y1. This is x2, this is y2. And as a helpful reminder, remember points always go x comma y. And these are labeled my first ones. These are labeled my second ones. You could have put them in a different order. It doesn't matter. So now that I have these values, let me go ahead and move the formula box over here. And we're just going to plug these in. So I'm going to have x2, which is 4. So the square root of 4 minus 2. And I'm going to square that. And then we're going to add that to my y2, which is 7 minus my y1, which is 1. And we're going to square that as well. So following orders of operations, first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do what's inside the parentheses. 4 minus 2 is 2. And then we're going to be squaring that shortly. And then 7 minus 1 is 6. We're going to square that as well. So moving on up over here, then what we're going to do is we're going to have the square root of 4 plus 36. That is going to give me the square root of 40. Now, you're not quite done here. You have the square root of 40, and you're going to say what two numbers multiply to 40. It's 4 and 10, and then this is 2 and 5. This is 2 and 2. So I can take out a 2, and I'm left with 2 times 5, which is 10. So therefore, the distance between 2, 1 and 4, 7 is this right here of 2 radical. Look at this one, same as always, and I'm sure you guys are getting used to what the formula is. I just want to make sure we have it memorized. x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. And just label these points. This is my first group of points. Remember, it's always x comma y. And we're going to plug these in here now. So now I'm going to have the square root of negative 7 minus negative 3 squared. So I took care of my x's. I'm going to add that to 2 minus negative 8 squared. This is a parenthesis. All right. So I'm going to have negative 7 take away a negative. That means it turns to plus. So negative 7 plus 3 is negative 4 squared. Plus, and then I'm going to have 2 minus negative 8, which is 10 squared. All right. So then negative 4 times negative 4 is 16, and 10 times 10 is 100, and that means I'm going to have 116. And I need to find the square root of 116. So off the top of my head, I don't know what square root of 116 is. So let's go ahead and bring up a calculator to help us solve it. So looking at this calculator, if I do 116 divided by 2, that'll be 2 and 58. Then I look at two numbers that multiply to 58. I'm going to divide that by 2 as well. So it's going to be 2 and 29. Now 29 is prime, so I'm done right there. I have my pairs, so it's 2, and what's left inside the radical is 29. So the distance between those 2 points is 2 radical 29. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the last one right now. Same idea, we're going to do the formula of x1 minus x2. Take that back. We're going to do x2 minus x1 squared plus parentheses y2 minus y1 squared. So if this is my x1, y1, x2, y2, and what we're going to do is we are going to have 2 minus 2/3, and we're going to square that, and we're going to plus, so we did 2 minus 2/3, and we're going to have 1/3 minus -1, and we're going to square that. Now this whole thing is going to be in a square root. So let's go ahead and begin solving this. 2 minus 2/3 is 1 1/3 squared. And to make it easier, I'm going to turn this into an improper fraction. That would be 4/3 squared. And I'm going to have 1/3 minus -1. That's going to turn into a plus to get 1/3. Excuse me, plus 1 1/3. And same thing, if I turn that into an improper fraction, 1 times 3 is 3. 3 plus 1 is 4, so I'm going to have 4/3 squared. So I'm going to add these together. Make sure these are all in square roots. So first thing what I'm going to do is distribute this squared to the top and the bottom. So 4 times 4 is 16, 3 times 3 is 9. And we're going to do it to here as well. 4 times 4 is 16, 3 times 3 is 9. So 16 plus 16 is 32. And remember when we add fractions, it just stays as a 9. Now don't forget, our last and final step, I need to take the square root of this. So what I'm going to do is take the square root of 32 and the square root of 9. Square root of 9 is just 3, and now I just need to find out what the square root of 32 is. So let me make some more room. So if I looked at the square root of 32, two numbers that multiply to this are 16 and 2, and two numbers that multiply to 16 are 4 and 4. I already have a pair, so I don't need to break it down anymore. So that would give me 4 radical 2 all over 3 is my distance between those 2 points. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any more questions, please feel free to email me or your teacher.